But there are also unique features in each of our companies. Some of the companies have overheads that are not directly linked to the organization. What I mean is when you are a part of a group of companies. Some companies there are sister companies that are in different businesses. Some companies have organizations that are related to the tourism. They are your DMC company or the company that you attach to that has other revenue generating streams. And some companies are only in the DMC business or related to a particular business attached to the tourism industry. So there are the common features that we are faced with as well as unique features that are faced with. Each of these entities are also faced with certain unique issues. The overheads are unique to each of those companies. The number of commitment levels are different. Number of fixed costs and variable costs can be different as well. Vasanta pointed out in his presentation, two of the biggest elements in our business is capital on human resources, which is a fixed cost to a large extent, but then organizations or the establishments that has a fair amount of contracted staff who would come and work for the organization based on the demand basis. Others are fixed costs. Then you have the other overhead activities such as the rent, electricity, In addition to that, you have a high component on sales and marketing or promotional visits, however you call it, which can be used as a variable on the current day because it is spent based on need basis spend. And currently, that cost is marginal or can be considered not a huge burden. So with that segmentation, you are built with one significant vertical in your overhead structure, which is your staffing. Now, across the globe, just not in Sri Lanka, we have encountered or we have read and we have understood how the organizations are managing this scenario. So when you have revenue income, which is common again, as I said, zero revenue, in common to all of us, you obviously have to, your hit list become, not so right word to use, but your hit list become your expenditure. And you establish, you prioritize, you will identify the cost element that has the biggest impact in keeping your business an ongoing concern. Now, if you have large other commitments, such as loan repayments that are not connected to post-Easter loan, soft loans or relief packages that are given after COVID, those commitments can be also a heavy burden on you, such as if you have invested a lot of money on a vehicle fleet prior to all this, because things were looking good for us before Easter issue, then that you need to also re-engage with your bankers and renegotiate for terms and conditions, but that will be outside what the industry as a whole is trying to do for all our membership. So the cost, when it comes to cost elements, we identified staff being your number one overhead, and then again, while it's a common element for all our companies in different quantum, different impact being slightly variable from company to company. Each company would look at it also in a unique way. Some companies will look at retaining the staff and understanding the positive future ahead of us. It will take time. It will have its own course of time for it to rebound back. We'll be fooling ourselves if we look at bouncing back on the next 6 to 8 months, in my opinion as well. I believe it is going to be not other side of 1 year at least until we see some flow of business that is going to keep us going. But it is the challenging period will be how we manage up until then. So coming back to the staffing issue again, each company will look at various ways. Some will look at keeping staff and everyone having to take some kind of a remuneration cut or a drop in managing overheads, while some companies will look at reducing the staff and keeping the little number of people a lot more motivated. So there are different ways to manage it. So I suppose it is a requirement for you to understand your fundamentals of your company, relationships you have with your agencies, whether those agencies overseas who have been your backbone of your business, if they are still alive, if they are dead and gone, if they are closed down shop, then you know that it's not promising for you to keep the business going. It's necessary that you understand that component as well. You are not going to get the business like we did in the past by being the survival of the fittest and being the smartest by undercutting. You are going to see business shifting, in my opinion, until we bounce back. The competition will always start much later. I think what is required at this moment of time for all of us is to be complementary partners than being competing partners. We all have a common problem. We all have common objectives. We all have a common crisis. We all expect a similar outcome to and fast as possible. Therefore, we need to complement each other in our bouncing back strategy. So, while we understand the future prospects, and that's where your engagement with your partners are required, that's where you need to understand how they are going to look at their business rebounding model, and if there is hope with your existing partners for you to see a rebounding model, then you can see how you are going to manage your overhead, keeping in mind the rebounding strategy. So it all again very different from company to company. There will also be new business avenues, in technology-based new business avenues that we all thought are impossible tasks. We did not think we can have an audit committee meeting remotely. We did not think we could have a debate on a management committee meeting remotely. We did not think working remotely in our business, having to hand over briefing packets and physical interaction was a possibility. We did not think closure of monthly accounts, and in this time around we were faced with a quarterly account as well as yearly account. An audit was possible remotely. So we have learned a lot in the crisis, as they always say. There are the opportunities that comes with crisis periods. And we have also realized that however old we are, whether we are in the league of knowing the IT, we thought we are not, it is to the younger generation, but we all have embraced this IT-related remote interaction to manage our businesses. With that comes other possibilities. How do we now look at technology-driven approach in developing our business and having another vertical? So there are two things in a business: revenue generation and overhead management. So my point here, and I hope I'm addressing your question as well, we need to understand the revenue generating streams and expand it further if it necessary, while understanding your existing model of revenue generation as a sustainable way forward. Then the second point, if you look at your overhead structure, understanding various areas and understanding key models, key verticals that contribute to large amount of your cost, how you're managing that. So when you bring one supersedes the other at the moment, the cost element is much higher than your revenue. So if you can bring these two to balance it out at some point, you will see the beginning of your baby steps again in hopefully revenue streams taking over your overhead structure. That could be the beginning of a business for all of us and for the industry as well. But right way forward for each of the companies has to be looked at very critically by each one of us in our respective companies. In that space, I go back to the presentation I made previously, some bold decisions has to be made, and those bold decisions has to be made after understanding, after having done a strategic evaluation of your business model on the revenue and the overhead structure. That's my feeling on the question.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for sharing your insights and your ideas and views how to survive in this difficult time. The next question is from Ishan. Ishan, as you know that today most of the airlines are struggling to survive in the business. I see any positive movement even coming 6 months. If we think about Sri Lankan Airlines, other than the repatriation flights and the cargo flights, we know that there are much movement. At the moment, the airports are closed for tourists, and you have your fixed costs such as maintenance and also high lease costs. In this context, what are the plans of because Sri Lankan Airlines plays a major role with regard to Sri Lankan tourism. So what are the plans Sri Lankan Airlines has already done, or what are the things they are planning to do for their survival and to be in the business for next few years?
Okay. As you said, Sri Lankan Airlines is playing a major role in Sri Lankan tourism industry, and also we have links to many other industries. So it's not a isolated business anymore. We are government-owned business, and linked. Our existence is important for many other industries in Sri Lanka to survive. So whatever our business strategies will not basically based on the profit, but maintaining the connectivity from Sri Lanka to different areas of the world is the major concern. Having said that, before I come to this presentation, I spoke with my high management what we see as our future as a airline. In this situation, many things changing all over the world. Before COVID, we were aiming at Indian destinations, Chinese destinations, getting down tourists from China into Sri Lanka. Likewise, our core markets were China and India. But right now, those two markets are heavily affected by COVID-19 pandemic, and we don't see very quick release from this COVID-19 from China and India. So, as an airline, we are looking into new destinations. So, the current plan is we are planning to start one more European destination, Frankfurt in Germany. Then South Korea is one of the considerations, and we will look into Sydney operation. Perth is also under consideration. But as I said, even yesterday evening we were informed that Melbourne flights are suspended. So things can change. So even management is not in a position to commit that we will go and start this destination at this time of the year. The high management feedback for this question was we will start with cargo operations. We will concentrate more on our freight operation, cabin cargo operation, and gradually, depending on the passenger demand, we will look into any destination in the world, so that we can connect Sri Lanka to that part of the world. So that's the way forward from our management, that we are not stick to a very solid plan. We are keeping ourselves open for any opportunity that we can grab after this COVID-19 situation.
Thank you, Shan. I think the most suitable person to ask this question is Vasanta. Vasanta, I know this is unprecedented context, but we need to move forward. We need to bounce back. What should be our marketing strategy? And what do you think about, because there's a big discussion at the moment in the industry, we should concentrate on high-end clientele. What do you think about it? And also, what do you think about discounting strategy? You're talking about the success story of Indian market, buy one, get one free. And also I would like to know, even you touched that in your presentation, that the government subsidies, you think that government should look after the travel industry more? What do you think about it? Basically, I'm just talking about 4 things: the marketing strategy going forward, and whether we need to concentrate on the high-end market, and also discounting strategy, and finally the government support to travel and tourism industry.
Yeah, I'll first focus on the positioning, whether we should position Sri Lanka as a high-end destination or otherwise. If you do a global study on tourism, right, you can probably find just 4 or 5 destinations who have survived for specific reasons on high-end travel, where you limit your travel and say, right, our country has space only for X amount of travelers, but they will have to pay this premium package price, and we will open our borders for them. But Sri Lanka is not in that space. Sri Lanka is, the diversity is such, the product offering is such, our positioning is such, and we cannot, I'm a strong believer that we cannot limit ourselves only to high-end. High-end is one element of travel, right? Having said that, I'm not a believer of that. I'm not closing the door on high-end. High-end is essential. In every sphere, there is a high-end element and a low-end element. Even if you take an aircraft, there is a business class, in some cases first class, and the economy. So in everywhere you travel, even you go to see a theatre or whatever, there are other premium seats and otherwise seats. So you have to, it has to be a mix of many facets of travel, right? If not, we are going to close ourselves on lots of opportunities. You see, when you look at the employment generated out of tourism, directly and indirectly, and with the dependents, we are looking at about 2 billion people who are surviving on tourism. I'm looking at the total trickle-down effect of tourism, right? Now, these 2 million cannot survive on high-end, right? It will be only a handful which can probably survive on this high-end. So, even from an economics perspective, but largely from a product perspective, we have to facilitate, whether it's 2-star, whether it is Airbnb, whether it's the informal sector who will go by train and bus and all that and find their way, even the backpackers, they are all, looking at the global definition of traveler, anyone who crosses a border from A to B is considered a traveler, a tourist, right? So we have to be in that space, and the figures that we are talking about are people who the numbers we are talking about constitute of all these travelers. So I strongly, whilst I say high-end is essential, we must not confine ourselves to high-end. I'm very clear about it. We have to have space for all aspects. And also, now that you touched on high-end, it should not be high-end in inverted commas. If you are talking about high-end, we must have the entire plethora of services high-end, right? I see shortcomings in our high-end services. Maybe we have certain hotels which accommodate that extreme high-end, but we don't have the other facilities which can accommodate high-end, right? A high-end traveler will also want to go to city or any of the sites, and in these sites, high-end or otherwise, you have the same facilities, and that is one area that we have to improve. I'm just diverting a little bit. You know, if you have the high-end, our entire service offering, the standard has to improve, and it has to improve to a different level. This is where I would like to see more government engagement in bringing quality and controls in. I'm talking about, you know, the various the Ayurveda centers that we have and stuff. Yeah, it is hygienically there are disaster, most of them. There are no controls. It is all absolute. You know, commission is a standard thing in tourism, but these places are ruthlessly commission driven. You know, client has to pay 3-4 times of the actual price to get a service, and that's also a half-baked service. So you can't look at high-end piecemeal. You have to look at the entire big picture and look at high-end. Now, Sri Lanka and the airport to some extent has that high-end. We know it's their roots and all that, but that again has to be taken to a different level. So I'm again a strong believer that we have to be in all spaces, but high-end is a key element going forward. Number 2 would be on the marketing aspect. Historically, we have been European-centric. 65 to 70% of our travelers in the past came from Europe. That has changed significantly over the years with India coming into the picture, Eastern Europe coming into the picture, then the Middle East, and over the last 5 years or so, China making a very, very strong effort, and now we see Australia and other countries as well. So we have those historical markets which have kept Sri Lanka going. Then we have another element that we have to take is at the end of the day, head count is important, but also rupees and cents is equally important, or the dollars or the earnings is equally important. If you take Indians and Chinese, you are looking at an average stay of 4 to 5 nights. If you take at a maximum, right, Indians can be even 2 to 3 nights. If you take a European traveler, you are looking at 10 to 12 nights average stay. So per night spent is equivalent. One Indian traveler is roughly equivalent to, say, 3 Indian travelers is equivalent to 1 European traveler, if you put the number of nights into equation. So those are things that you have to take into consideration. But when you're in a seller's market, you probably don't have the ideal choice of what you want. And right now, most of the world, the sellers are struggling. So the whole world in the leisure business is in a seller's market. So are we. So we will not have the luxury of picking and choosing what market we want to be, right? We have to be probably in any market that creates an opportunity. So in that sense, from a marketing perspective, we have to work on a mix, and this mix will also, I'm talking about the present, probably the next 2-year window. We have to look at it from a perspective of the travel corridors as well. There's no point in going to markets and promoting Sri Lanka if there is a restriction in those travelers coming to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka knows in the presentation very clearly said, look, you can walk into UK as long as you have a visa without a problem. All what you need to do is to give an address where you will stay for the next 14 days. And they will, I know through experience, they don't even check that, right? So you can freely go in there. But in Sri Lankan context, in the Sri Lanka context, it's very, very different. You have to stay, if you come from overseas, it's 14 days voluntary quarantine, and another 14 days you have to go to your house and stay under house quarantine, right? So essentially 28 days. So till these travel corridors are established, we have a problem. Now though Maldives is opening tomorrow, they have very clearly said visa on arrival, no quarantine. But also they have a mechanism to ensure that the client lands, disappears from the airport to the resort. And you have that client captive in the resort, and they probably have a system monitor. But as far as the client is concerned, I can land, go to my end stay and enjoy my holiday, right? So those elements are important. So in the present context, in the immediate immediate future, till we have some sanity into this whole problem, till we have open clearance for the world to move, I think we have to look at markets which will countries which will have an easier facility to travel, and that is where I think the government of Sri Lanka and the health authorities must take a check on. They have to look at where they can open the borders for travel, mutual travel. And I would look at countries, Korea, even Mahen was earlier talking about Korea, he is very knowledgeable on Korea. Korea is one country, and New Zealand is now an open space. So there are a fair amount of countries which are clear, which will be less risky for people to move around. But at the end of the day, we have to also bear in mind that this is, national interest comes first and foremost in everything, right? So far they have done a very admirable job, and we have to support them to continue that. So we have to always work within the guidelines. So there is no real, I don't think there is a real reason for us to go on a bad marketing campaign. And marketing is really, Sri Lanka has marketed herself on its own to a large extent. People know this destination, people value this destination, people want to travel to this destination. So if you are spending money, you have to spend that money in a very careful manner and in a tactical manner. Now India would have been a perfect market to go, but Sri Lanka, I think one of your biggest hits, Eshan, would come from India. We have so many frequencies to India, but at the rate India is having this COVID in, so India space opening is going to be not going to happen in the near future at all. And all your connectivities, you are using Colombo as a hub from India, so all those are in a quandary. China again, China is probably there's space in China for us to go, so it might be good for us to look at China as an option. And also China may not be all gateways, but even certain gateways. So I have a mixed opinion on that. We have to do marketing, but it has to be targeted, specific, strategic, as far as marketing is concerned, right? On government support, I think, as I said before as well, government has put in a lot of effort for the tourism industry. People have got help last April and now with this as well. There is a limit to what government can go out. But probably one area where you need government support is that is mainly SLTDA, is to put some sanity into this madness at various, some controls on our standards. We have standards on paper. It is not happening. You can't get a license without complying to a massive checklist. But at the end of the day, 90% of that checklist is violated. So there's no point in having it. There has to be somebody who's ruthless driving it and ensure those standards are complied with. That would help. I'll just give you one example, which is in my mind a very positive thing. What happened at Golfest 10 days ago, where this Sri Lankan boy and a Russian tourist, they were walking, and it was in the mass media as well. 5 guys remarked, they are still in remark. You have to, if you don't have discipline, nothing will work. And that is where we would probably need the government to intervene. I'm not sure about, maybe on the marketing side, yes, on this tactical marketing support, but not to subsidize. I think we must move away from this, trying to always run the begging bowl for subsidies. That's my personal view. Subsidies are necessary in absolute essential times for certain specific reasons within certain windows, but should not be taken for granted. So that's on that. There's one other thing.
The bounce back process, what do you think for discounting and attracting?
Yeah, this is another thing that has been frustrating me, and this is more evident after the end of the war in 2009, particularly with lots of new entrants into the market. Sri Lanka, the biggest strategy they knew, most players, was to look at what a competitor would offer and eyes closed, give a 10% discount on that. They don't know how the hell they will do it, where it comes. That I'm totally against it. Discount, in this present time, when the top line is bleeding and you have no revenue there, it is important to get whatever business you can get at whatever price. But there has to be a structured process for that. I don't think discounting is the only way to win business. You have to be smart. And one of the things that Sri Lankans in most businesses, I can see that very clearly in the tourism business, does not do properly is to upsell. We don't know how to add value to somebody and upsell something. And that upselling is very, very simple. You give the basic product at X price. And you say, look, I can give you this with a supplement of this. I can give you air condition, whatever, suite or a nice experience somewhere or a meal at a hilltop or whatever at a small subsidy. So that upselling, you have to be creative to craft something that is different to the others. And that of course comes with the knowledge, that comes with experience as well. But that is what the seniors in the industry must tell the juniors, that their strategy should not be to win business at any cost. Right? Their strategy should be to win business smartly, in a smarter manner, because eventually you get a higher revenue, you get a higher price for it, and a lot of service providers will also benefit. Right? So while saying that there is a need for us to be competitive, right, we have to not be ruthlessly price driven to undercut somebody else. Undercutting, price discounting will not take us anywhere. Eventually we'll all fall to the same pit, and Sri Lanka as a destination will suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasanta. We didn't get a single tourist since mid of March, since the borders are closed. Now everyone's focus is on domestic tourism. Now all the hotels are looking at, even as destination management companies, us are looking at domestic tourism. I know you have close to 30 properties. And what kind of strategies are you going to follow in order to, because all the other hotels also going to look at that. So what kind of strategies you are going to follow as a group, or what kind of strategies you can suggest to the industry to survive, to attract, to grab that this local domestic business?
Yes, we have all seen the domestic market. I mean, weekend offers, all the hotels have come out with weekend offers, weekday offers, long stay offers, then rate card offers with banks. So that has been going on ever since the lockdown was lifted. So as for Cheping hotels, we have been experiencing high occupancies during the weekends. I think especially because we are located all over the country, from north to south, east to west, hill country, Kandy, the east coast, then the safari parks. So I would say that since we are positioned all over, we will have a slight advantage on the business. And then also there is the other thing that I think we need to add value, because price alone, everyone offers the same products in a hotel, the service, food, then the other facilities like the pool, the spa. But you have to really differentiate your model. You have to add value to the product. For example, we showcase a lot of things in our properties. On the sustainability side, on the biodiversity, on the community relations that we have, and then also going into the north and then taking part in the reconciliation program. So I think all this has helped, I think, to generate a brand which is looking after, and showcasing, value additions. To touch more on that, on the sustainability side, 40% of our electricity is generated by solar power. And then we have our own bottling plants. We do bottled water in our premises. Then we train staff in the area. When we start constructing hotel, we go into the villages and with the help of the priests, between the young youth who are jobless and then train them and then employ them. So they come out, I mean, as frontline workers, they come out with a genuine smile and village humbleness, which also helps you to have advantage over your competitor. Then on the biodiversity side, I mean, we have hotels in the cultural triangle that concentrates on the low-risk conservation sites. We have managed to, I mean, showcase this low-risk trail, which is very popular now, and lots of guests from other hotels also visit the hotels in the evening to look at this mammal. So likewise, I mean, I think it's something different to do than just dumping the prices. As Vasanta said, you know, it's a lot of things you can do to, especially for the domestic tourism, especially from Colombo. I mean, there are the current kids and international schools that has not visited a village. They don't know what a village life is. So you can, I mean, take them, I mean, to show agrotourism. We do 50 acres of paddy, organic paddy, and you know, for each season we probably harvest about 60,000 kilos of paddy. So out of that, 50% is organic. So these are all stories you can tell, I mean, your guests, and market those experiences to have advantage over the other, and just not dump prices and, you know, spoil the market.
Thank you, everyone. Now we have come to the Q&A session. What thing is, you are here to learn something. Also, you may have questions to ask from this expert panel. So please do pause so I can raise these questions from this panel. Before I go to the question, I'm going to ask a question from the panel. One of the panel members can answer a couple. This is a $1 million question. I know no one can exactly give an answer to this question. But all of us as the industry members thinking about our future, what do you think when we could see a decent movement of tourism into Sri Lanka? What kind of timeline you can think of? Whether it's going to be a few months or a few years. What do you think? What about your opinion where we can see a decent movement tourism into Sri Lanka?
We touched on it as well. In my opinion, winter 21-22, right? It will start by mid next year. We have, as you know, July, August is fairly busy for us, so during winter there will be traction during that period, but I'm fairly confident that we will have a busy winter 21-22, because as I said before, the whole world is fighting for a solution. This can't go on forever and ever and ever. There will be a solution medically, and that solution will result in 21-22
Thank you, Vasant. How can DMCs capitalize on domestic tourism?
There are different segments in domestic tourism, I think, in my opinion, that they can sort of have some benefit. I don't think it's an area that we can capitalize on fully. There will be some segment. Particularly on credit card offers, it's out of the question, because then there's a partnership between the hotel and the credit card, because they subsidize some cost element to it. I think the area that, in my opinion, that has some advantage is if it can be driven by the interest-driven tourism, whether it is photography or whether it's, if you custom make tours on the interest base, there are interest-based domestic traveler who is looking out. Of course, they don't wait till the DMC put a package together, but if you can market in a way, understanding the health guidelines, which will be our biggest challenge, because you will not be able to bring a lot of people into a bus group, unfortunately, under the current circumstances. People will like to travel in their individual vehicles, understanding that they are traveling with known people. So that's a challenge for us, but there will be little segments that we can manage. But in my personal opinion, I don't think it is a money spinner. It can have some revenue generating model, but with absolutely thin margins, but it's for some, at a time we are in a zero revenue scenario, some revenue generating to turn your wheels to let the benefits of that to cascade into your different layers in the tourism industry, which is one of our primary objectives as a DMC to support different layers in the industry, I suppose will be useful. So while I think there are huge challenges, there will be the areas that we can possibly target. And Rowan pointed out a very important message there. The families and the kids who have not seen outside main cities only in this country, they would possibly know Colombo, Galle, Kandy, and more so do happening cities. That's where people like to go to, but may not have seen the depth and breadth and length and breadth of this country has to offer on its historical and cultural heritage, the village atmosphere, some element of real rural life, some element of wildlife again is in that happening pattern. People like to talk about, I saw a leopard in Yard spot, put it on social media, and there is some style to it, so to say, in some area. But there are other things that lesser known to many that possibly can be marketed. So DMC knowledge, particularly included with expert knowledge that can be brought forward with the inclusion of an expert guide lecturer or a chauffeur guide who is an excellent in their communication and explaining and make it more educational, is an area that can add a lot of value if DMCs can bring that component forward. That's my view. But
just to add to that, Amit, I think from a Sri Lankan mindset, there is a slight fear factor to going to hotels. I'm not looking at the top 10% who will spend whatever the amount asked, but the majority, right? The middle income earner, because they feel that it's a question of affordability. They feel that it's not affordable and it's going to be costly, everything is going to be so much over the top, etc. That barrier has to be broken. This is similar to what it was, say, 20-25 years ago when supermarkets came into the picture, right? Everybody had their favorite corner shop or their polo or whatever to buy provisions. Now that entire concept has changed. People from every income earning bracket walking confidently to the supermarket because they know that there is value in what they buy, the freshness and all that. So that has happened. It has evolved over the years. Something similar should happen as far as the hospitality is concerned. But there has to be also a consistent plan to make sure that this local traveler is preferred and looked after in our hotels as well. You can't only welcome the local traveler when times are bad and kick the fellow when the times are good. That also has happened. I mean, there are places where they openly say no foreigners only and no Sri Lankans. So these are the barriers that we have to break. There is a big high spending market in Sri Lanka, and that market prefers to, during holiday periods and all that, most of them are overseas. They go to Maldives, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia and places, and they spend big money. So we have to find ways and means of attracting them, give them the confidence, give them some offers as well. You have to throw some money because there is inventory lost every day, right? You look at your operating expenses and see how much can I discount to encourage the local traveler. The only downside in the local traveler is, other than the holiday periods, they will only prefer to travel during the weekends, again for obvious reasons. So a hotel to block 2 nights out of 7 nights would be a problem, but these are things that we have to manage, observe. Now, when I was working during one of the many turbulence times we had, we started something called domestic tourism. And domestic tourism, Amit was touching about it, was every week we used to have 2 nights and 3 night tours to the cultural triangle, making our Haparana village at the time the base pass. So we had the numbers, 20, minimum 20, with the experienced guide who knew the archaeology, the sites and all that. And that was absolutely it, I must say, right? So you cater, you give them a good decent rice and curry meal, they don't ask for too much as well. So you have to stimulate this. Domestic tourism in most countries is thriving business. And thriving business where people, there is a third party making money out of it. It's a thriving business in Sri Lanka, but none of the DMCs or very few DMCs are involved in it because their preference is for somebody else. So that mindset has to change both from a DMC perspective and from hotel perspective. I would say more from hotel perspective.
Thank you, Vasanta. Yeah, actually, this situation has created some opportunities as well. I mean, as tour operators, we never thought of doing any domestic tourism because we were happy with what we have been doing. I think this has created a situation where we have to look at domestic tourism as well. So we have another question from the audience again. What is the approximate percentage drop you will see in summer 21 compared to 2018? We are in 2020 summer, so we are looking at 21 summer. So our best year in history was 2018. So what kind of a drop do you expect next year's summer compared to 2018?
Well, 19 summer was also bad. 19 summer was hit by the Easter. So following April up to almost end of summer, we had some lousy numbers as far as the numbers are concerned. So 18 by far was our best summer in terms of numbers. China was doing very well at the time as well. So we had the Golden Week, we had the labor holiday numbers coming into play pretty well in 2018 summer. After that, Chinese market dropping, now numbers dropped from China as well. So to specifically answer to your question, from a complete high perspective being 18 summer to 21 summer, my estimate would be anything between 75% and 90% drop from those numbers into summer 21. And that again, it will lot to do with for us, our numbers to kickstart, there are two elements, and I'm sure it's not something that I need to say. We need to see border opening as far as we are concerned, not border opening, airport opening, base for us. Then we have to see borders opening in our source markets, the corridor building up, and if some of our key generating markets, as you know, India and China put together, is contribute to nearly 30% of the arrivals to Sri Lanka. And if those two markets are not going to be enough way to produce their outbound travel, then we will have major issues as far as the numbers are concerned. But then having said that, it's only not the number game only. Even if we have reduced numbers and some regular flow of business coming from European markets, particularly considering that their length of stay is a lot more attractive for Sri Lanka and the hotels in general, that could be a good way to bounce back. So, directly answering to your question, I feel it's anything between 70 and 90% drop. It could be anything 5% here and there on that way.
Thank you, Amit.
Unless otherwise somebody else has another understanding. It would be good to have a discussion on this.
So, Vasant, any idea about the drop compared to 2018?
Yes, so agree with Amit that you have to take 2018 as the benchmark. I would say 70%, approximately 70% drop on 2018. High, 30% of that high figure, primarily for two reasons. One is there is a affordability factor here, right? Assuming everything is fine and from early next year people can travel and the borders are open, the disposable income for spending on leisure is going to be tight, right? Because people have gone through 2020, they would have gone through a difficult year. There would have been job losses in many instances across the world. So whether they have that money to spend on leisure, normally Europeans spend 3 holidays a year. So whether that 3 becomes 1 or 0 is a possibility. So that's one. The second one is that people will be, till time will heal it, but unfortunately for people like Sri Lankan, people will be rather cautious flying as well. To be, in an enclosed area for a period of, particularly from European flight, a 10-hour journey in a closed area, there will be few concerns like that. So it will be a slow start in some way.
Thank you, Vasant. With that, there is another question from audience. I think it's related to what Vasant just mentioned. With the protocols and the procedures you just mentioned, Ishan, at the airport, there's a question. What do you think about the timing? How in advance you have, normally it's 2 hours or 3 hours, how in advance you have to go to the airport to go through all these processes to get into the flight?
Right now we are thinking about 4 to 5 hours, but again it will be dependent on the health ministry. They are asking for a PCR test prior to travel. Then it's under discussion. For normal check-in procedure, it will be about 4 to 5 hours in advance the flight time.
Thank you, Ishan. And there is a question again from the audience from Mr. Sugal. Jetwing announced to be secured SLS 1672-2020, which COVID control environmental certification. Can you tell us the confidence and impact to the business getting this certification? It's from Ruan. The question is, getting announced to be secured SLS 1672-22.
The COVID protocol is going to be audited, and is that the question then?
Yeah, the certification you have obtained already.
Yeah. No, we have not obtained any certification. We are only following the guidelines. But Tourism Authority will very soon give us some in the guidelines, and it will be audited. So they are also given the audit to some company, outsourcing it. So after that, it's a matter of following it. And even at the moment, all our hotels are following the guidelines that have been already given to us by the health authorities.
Right, thank you everyone. And there is another question. If we are to gain momentum in local tourism, in the absence of foreign arrivals, how do we begin and promote local tourism? How do we sell to the local market? I think this was discussed and most of you answered, and if you want to add something you can. But I think this has been answered already.
It's to sort of put variations into your product, because all the hotels will discount, all the hotels are offering the same product, the locations are the same. So it's a matter of who is different from one another might get the business. Because the pie is so small, everyone is fighting for the same pie.
Right. There's another question that comes from 1st of August. In spite of the second wave, are we in a position to open Sri Lanka? That is the question.
I don't think so, because even if you open, with all these restrictions, with all these PCR tests and protocol that has to be followed, I don't think any tourists will be interested in coming unless it's emergency and some Sri Lankans who are dual citizens who want to come for various other reasons or business may travel, but a real tourist might think twice to come when they have to go through all these tests and protocols at the airport, and especially 4 or 5 hours before to check in. All these things might be a deterrent to the business. So until there is a solution, that's why I earlier mentioned about the regional travel, because regional travel, if you take places like Thailand, Vietnam and Korea, they have said that they are now got away, they are more or less control the COVID. So if we can do a bilateral with the countries and find a corridor and have direct flights coming, that could be a possibility to sow some in the future.
There's another question about SLBTA guidelines. are they kind of mandatory, you should follow, or it's voluntary? You have the choice of either to follow it or not.
Yeah, because there are these the auditors will come and check, and if you, I mean, you will have to follow it for your own safety and the safety of the guests, because now the guests who are visiting our hotels are particular, they like to see all these distancing done and the checking in procedures and sanitizing, all those things, they are also insisting. So I think everyone will have to follow the guidelines, I mean, until maybe for a very, very long period.
Vasant and Amit both covered this, but the question has come again. If you can add on something on this, what do you suggest DMC staff to do during this period for the future of tourism industry?
Encouraging all of them to enhance their product knowledge, and with limited corridors to different parts of the country, obviously that sensitivity with regard to travel and your interaction outside your home base keep changing daily. Up until the end of last week, people were fairly confident to travel the country, but over the last 48 hours to 72 hours, that is of a bigger concern because of a sudden outbreak now. But if possible, travel the country, see the product yourself. There are a lot of our own staff who have not seen the product they sell. Sometimes some of the bigger attractions as well. So use that time to travel as well as enhance your knowledge on the description. Some of our junior staff, including maybe not so junior as well, they cut and paste a description without even understanding and reading and having the understanding to what that site is all about. Today's the technology allows you to just Google, get it, cut, paste, forward the itinerary. But here is a golden opportunity for you to enhance that knowledge and to be able to understand. Then similarly, in the good old days, and everybody talks about these good old days things in whatever age category you are, we could do a calculation of a round tour manually on the calculator and establish the round tour mileage. Today, I don't think a lot of people understand the distance between Kandy and Colombo without Googling it. I can understand somebody Googling the distance between Birmingham and London. That's not our country. But in our own country, for people not to know the distances between two cities, you need to change that. That you should be able to do. You could view, when you are a senior, you will realize you are challenged by your overseas counterparts. They will ask you a question. How much would a 4-star hotel on half board, a 792 cost? We should be able to give a ballpark figure. But are we ready to do that? Yes, some of us who have gone through that process of doing calculations on a piece of paper, understanding. I have nothing against the technology. What I'm saying is understanding that knowledge behind what you present is I'm essentially talking about. You should be able to give a costing for a 1,000-kilometer round tour with 5-night stay in a 4-star hotel. What kind of a ballpark figure is that? So I think there's a golden opportunity to enhance that knowledge. And if you're a street mart seller, and when you start traveling overseas, your overseas tour operator will challenge you big time. And one of the reasons where you are required that knowledge is because you are if you are smart, they will realize this guy knows what he's talking about. So that I think is an area that is falling through. There need to be to bridge that gap in knowledge, know-how. Not just when I presentation, I looked at two different sides. Internal side, that is about the product and mileages and costings and that this and the other. Then the external side, negotiation, product presentation. Sometimes you get a group of call center staff from frontline officers in the tour operator companies where you give them product presentation. And they are your frontline. And if you can convince them to believe in what you are saying as a brand ambassador, they will sell you or our product or Sri Lanka vis-a-vis another product in their brochure when they get a call from a customer. So I think it's a golden opportunity for youngsters to enhance their knowledge.
Thank you, Amit. I know that's very
absolutely important, but probably two areas. One is people have enough time, right? Why don't we get them to do some research and ask them, say if there are 10 staff members, ask in a small competition, ask them to come up with clear justification, 3 new destinations where we can pitch ourselves and market. Not meaning Sri Lanka, but more from a company specific, right? Looking at new markets, venturing into new areas, but that also should be based on there has to be a air corridor, meaning there has to be flight connectivity, and that particular market must have a robust outbound market. It can't be a market which doesn't believe in outbound travel and doesn't have the wherewithal or the spending power to do that. So something like that, just to stimulate, ask them to look at new source markets for the company. Number 2 is 80% of the people are involved only in the operation. Let's say 20% would do active marketing overseas and otherwise, but operations alone will at the end of the day not take you anywhere. They have to understand how a company works, and that is from top to bottom. One of the big weaknesses that we see in staff is they have no knowledge or very little knowledge of back office, meaning finance, right? They have to understand where this money goes and how the company survives. So there has to be, it's a simple process at the end of the day, right? So it is your top line, it is your expenses, this is the profit, the pitfalls in that, and how much GP is actually needed for your survival. That knowledge, backhand knowledge at the end of the day is going to be very, very important when you are a frontline marketing person, particularly at senior level, because you know how it filters down. And that knowledge, basic knowledge of finance is, in my opinion, very important.
Thank you, Vasanth. There are more questions we have received. The next question is, will there be a supervision procedure to monitor the government guidelines once the country is open for tourism?
I think Slaito Association is engaging with the tourism authorities, particularly SLTDA. We have the president here with us today, and he is more or less sitting in these offices these days, talking to various officers and chairperson and the directors and various other officials in those organizations. We are trying to establish a few things still little unclear to us. One with regard to certification per se, COVID-friendly properties, and one of the requirements is that for us to client to select a property when they have to travel as per the protocols now. So we are still trying to establish that, and then with regard to the audit, who's going to give us the information with regard to products that have been selected and been certified as per the regulator, which is SLTDA. So those discussions are taking place now. To be very honest, we have not established clearly what those guidelines are, unless Mahin want to have a covered Mahin. Yeah. Okay. So that's how we understand current.
Thank you, Amin. And there's another question I think Ishan can answer this. How long will it take to do a PCR test? Not to get the result, but to do the test at BIA. And will there be a procedure to control the traffic? Like the question is, as Gil mentioned, say that if there are 3 flights arrive at the same time, normally midnight, Singapore Airlines, Malaysian, Thai, Sri Lanka, all arrive at the same time. So are you going to follow, authorities are going to follow a procedure where to control the traffic to help to get this PCR test process?
Yes. Right now, the airport and aviation give the slot clearance for only a limited number of flight arrivals in a certain period. Before COVID-19, we had about 15 flight movements per hour. So during our 12-hour shift, we operated about 60 to 90 flights during 12-hour shift. But the way forward, there can be huge reduction. The current situation, they are aiming at per flight it will be about 4 to 6 hours clearing period. That means to cover all the passengers, PCR test and release them into the country, it will take about 4 to 6 hours. Then it is we are only getting about 4 flights per day, so it will be a challenge. But again, nothing is finalized. The airport authority, civil aviation authority are looking into possibilities to increase the number of flights per day and reduce the time taken to clear passengers from each flight.
Thank you, Ishan. Question has directly sent to Amit. Question is, Amit, still we don't see light end of the tunnel. How long DMC could hold on like this? Do you think companies will hold on to their staff that long?
I think cash is the king here. If you have heavy debts that are yet to be paid for the business you have serviced pre-COVID, there's a risk factor in that collection. You may get it, may not get it. That entity may be in business, may not be in business. And if you don't get that, that is going to directly hit your P&L, and it is going to show as a massive loss. In our business, unlike others, if you have serviced a group for 1 million rupees, and if your profit taking a conservative guess at 100,000 rupees, your P&L will carry 100,000 as an income, as a contribution, as a GP, and your overheads will be deducted off that. To give a simple explanation, I'm sure you'll understand. But when the money is not paid, you're what is going to hit the P&L is not 100,000, but the 1 million. That's the revenue. So that will take off the profits you have made of other 10 groups. So that's critical way I am analyzing you. Money, debt, what you have had post pre-COVID, and the existence of those entities based on current crisis that has hit the world. This is not like previous ones where only Sri Lanka had issue, they were doing business with the rest of the world. This is very different. So that's critical as far as I see. The second one, the monies are not paid and businesses are flourishing and not flourishing, businesses are strong. So there's a likelihood of that business money coming to you, so you can be very hopeful. Then the third scenario where you have collected your debt and your money is in hand and you have made reasonable profit, hopefully having this. So the third segment will be most likely to survive better post-COVID, yet having to manage their overheads very critically and not a nice word to use, but ruthlessly managing your overheads. So that segment will probably do better, unless otherwise you have other businesses in your group of companies that can subsidize your DMC section to keep it alive. So the way I see it, cash in hand is the only way to keep going concern while bringing your overheads to bare minimum and managing with bare minimum cost overheads. Unfortunately, in our business, as I pointed out before, 60-65%, because it's staff and staff related, you will end up with that vertical to manage your costs. So that's the way I'm seeing for DMCs going forward.
Thank you, Amit. The next one is not a question, it's a request from Ishan. Do you have official document with all these information and the procedures, safety procedures to share with the operators?
Civil aviation document is there, it is published on the civil aviation website. But destination wise, there's no such document as a summary. We have to check with the relevant destination. But travel information magazine itself shows the restrictions or any requirements before traveling to that particular country or the airport.
I think the question from the audience is, they would like to inform our operators or principals overseas, these are the procedures going to be followed at Colombo Airport on arrival and departure. So have Sri Lankan Airlines or the airport authorities have done such a document? Are you going to publish something like that very soon? Or?
Civil Aviation Authority has already published, which I used at the presentation. It is GD 10010. It is published on Civil Aviation website, but it can be updated with the opening up of the airport, because the said guidelines was published in early May. So there can be a update. So let's wait, or you can go ahead and download it from Civil Aviation Authority website.
So it's available on Civil Aviation Authority. Thank you. And the next question we have got, I have also lined up a similar kind of question here. I'll put those two questions together. Opening borders for tourism versus safety of general public and public reaction about tourists. The question I have received, that's the question I have lined up, but there's a question here. When the foreign travelers start to travel through the island, how we can let the clients mingle with the local community without making hassles to the clients?
Well, it's a tough one. We all know the guidelines are there, and we know what is happening now. But whether it's a tourist or a local, right? If there are standard operating procedures and guidelines given by the authorities concerned, that must be respected, right? And I honestly don't see a foreigner violating those terms and conditions, right? It happens more in our local scenario than anything else. But if and when the borders are open and the tourists are allowed to come, follow the protocol at the airport, they are released to do their touring. Also, assuming that all that is said and done, so they get into a vehicle, again there will be controls as far as the driver or shop guide or the guide is concerned. There will be controls if it's a group, because the group size will be limited. Say there won't be, at least for the time being, there won't be 40 passengers in a 45-seater bus, so there will be limitations there. So as long as all that is complied, there is compliance, I don't see a problem in that in practice, because you're allowing that individual to enter the country on the basis that individual is COVID free, because that check and control has been done, right? So if that check and control has been done and they are compliant with, then when they check into a hotel, it has to be, they have to be 100% compliant with the hotel guidelines, again which are stipulated by the authorities. So as long as you do that, there should be a problem. But the concern here is that most of these repatriation flights, I mean, this is what the authorities have also, is they are, as of now, they have to get their PCR testing done, and only if they are COVID free, they are allowed to board. But in how many instances we see that they land and then they, at the airport or in quarantine, you find 2-3 people appearing. Even from one of the London flights, had a few who were COVID. So there could be leakage. And the leakage, how do we plan that leakage is probably a question.
No, so I mean, I know that at the week of March, if you can remember, there will be an aggression or negative reaction towards tourists when this started the whole situation. Do you think that this will be there when we resume our tourism operation again?
I personally think there has been a fair amount of opinion voiced on that. Slaito also came very strongly on that and said it is not fair to discriminate people like that. There were certain nationalities who were not even allowed to get into a three-wheeler. You know, that is being petty and childish. That needs education process. I think we passed that. I don't think we will go back to that, because this is it's a common problem. It's a common problem that we all have to, irrespective of race, creed, whatever, we have to get together and come out of this.
From Prince Charles to Amitabh Bachchan.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Until I get the question, I have lined up some questions since we have time. Why Sri Lanka has not been included in the UK and other European countries into the safe travel destinations?
Why we should get included or excluded from another list until we are able to welcome passengers. I think that's our number one step, and we have to obviously lobby once we know those deadlines in when we are going to open. So until we have a firm understanding on that, it is not something that we should be worried about, because we can't even lobby for the right group of people asking why Sri Lanka should not, why Sri Lanka is included in the list here. So I suppose that's our number one priority, number one obstacle as well, and the number one challenge also. Nobody can go and confidently lobby to open the airport until we have some safety network or some stability in terms of the current issue is concerned. So these are multi-million-dollar questions currently, but when the time is right, when we have the green light, I think we should lobby and get it. And Slaito is heading that movement as well with the NTO to talk to the EU heads as well as British authorities in Sri Lanka to be included at the right time. We will do that.
Thank you, Amit. I know the next question should actually go to the authorities, but since you all are closely working with authorities as organizations, any plans of establishing travel corridors or bilateral agreements with countries to boost tourism in the post-COVID scenario? Any discussions happening with any specific countries at the moment? Like I know already Singapore has done with China, and with Malaysia, Australia is doing that with New Zealand at the moment.
I think Sri Lankan Airlines, Sean very clearly mentioned their intentions in recommencing flights to Frankfurt. That itself is a very positive move as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. I think the entire industry, since Sri Lanka pulled out the other European flights, both Paris and Frankfurt, we have been lobbying this long before all these issues for a long period of time to have direct connectivity, which is a key element in any travel corridor. It is a very positive news at a very uncertain period to have that kind of a news coming into for the tourism sector. I think similarly, if there are to your specific question, I think we were initially talking about China and Korea as a potentially high market to recommend some sort of a direct connection, obviously with the blessings of Sri Lanka as well. Air connectivity is the key here. So I think again that there's a changing ground scenario in all areas from one week to the other, and therefore there is no clear strategy, unfortunately, as to where we should go and what we should do. Look what happened in Australia. Melbourne, as they say, one of the best places to live, and one of my friends have posted saying even COVID thing is the best place to stay, because it is now locked down for a longer period, and they have the second lockdown that is taking place. So we initially thought Australia could be a market as well when they initially handled the situation exceptionally well, both Australia and New Zealand. Unfortunately, we didn't have much arrivals from New Zealand to Sri Lanka, and the connectivity was only via Australia or Singapore, Malaysia, or Colombo. So therefore, the hope of reopening Australia is also now delayed. So currently, that's the status in where we are.
Thank you, Amit. There's another question from audience. I think as you also mentioned, the importance of being in touch with our principal operators, agents, is crucial time. The question is, any idea of developing official communique which can circulate among our business partners, which also we can use to update our principal, overseas principal?
Just to add to that, I personally think these official communications are fairly ancient. Right? In this day and age, the news filters so fast. whole world knows what is happening. And I think Sri Lanka, the perception on Sri Lanka's COVID handling across the world is positive, it's good. They all feel that we have had a very good system in managing this issue. The downside has been this new cluster that has opened. But again, the fact that they are coming out openly and saying the action they are taking is good. There's a little what you can say with the official communique. You say, give a official communique, can you say when the airport is opening? So none of those things are really cast in stone at the moment. There are lots of things in limbo. I believe once there is more clear guidelines on this, for example, we know on this like what Maldives did. So 1 month ago they said we are opening on the 15th and they gave the guidelines. So once we are clear of something like that, we should be able to, we probably can then announce it as a public document. It's probably a little too early in my view. But I fully agree with Amit on these relationships with LTUs. This business is again people-centric. Whatever said and done, right? The bottom line is your relationship, right? Though business has changed rapidly over the last so many years, earlier it was more weighted towards relationships, but now it is clinical, right? It's clinical, it's ruthless. You can be my friend, but for these reasons I will not work with you. That is there now. But at the end of the day, that relationship is sacred. And time you spend with your partners, time you spend in engaging with them is very, very important for your sustainability and retention of business.
I'll put this question to all of you because I think it's related to all business management companies today as well as airlines. Now with the health guidelines and so on, there will be a lot of expenses you are going to incur with these new guidelines, right? So that is going to have a cost pressure on your side with the guidelines. And also, Asham, if I come to you with the airlines, if you happen to maintain social distancing in the flight, that means you can't sell the number of seats you used to sell. So that is going to again put the cost pressure on to us when we consume our business. And again, when it comes to destination management companies with regard to inbound tourists, what we can see with this situation, okay, let's see, we find a solution for this or vaccine for this COVID. But as a result of this COVID scenario, there are a lot of economic depressions you are going to see. You are going to see a lot of downturns in the economy, a lot of unemployed people in the world. So their disposable income is going to go down, and number of travelers who want to go overseas, as Vasanta mentioned, is going to go down. So we are going with regard to the cost of the hotels, cost of the airlines, as well as power of travel, purchasing power of their income, because their income has gone down or they have lost their jobs. So all these are going to be issues. So can, starting from Ruan, could you kindly comment about it, please?
I mean, other than the sanitizing liquid and the mask and the gloves and the sneeze screens that you put on in front of the food, there isn't much of an expense to control this according to the protocol that is given to us. But as you say, I mean, for airlines and others, it can be a huge cost because if you give me the center seat and buy 50% of the aircraft, I mean, then there will be somebody has to pay double for the seat. So I think for the hotelier's point of view, I mean, we haven't seen much of a cost increase. I mean, they have asked us to keep 1 or 2 rooms available without setting in case somebody has a temperature, then you isolate that person in the room and then get the ambulance and dispatch to the hospital or contact the GM or closer GM. So from the hotelier's point of view, I don't see much of a cost implication, I mean, following the COVID protocol.
Thank you, Ron. Ishan, what do you think about the airline situation, restricting the number of seats you can sell?
We don't believe that any country will go for that empty situation where the seat factor will reduce to 50%. But there can be some restriction to keep about 10% of the seats isolation, so that if we found any case during flight we can isolate the passenger to the rear end of the aircraft and isolate him from the other passengers. So that's the positive future that we are looking at, not keeping every other seat empty. So anyway, with this there will be increase of the price, fare of the ticket, because we have to cover costs. Even there was a Facebook going on that we have charged double amount from repatriation flights from India, but nobody knew that our aircraft went to India empty and got 200 passengers, where seating capacity is nearly 300. So we have to cover the cost. So we have to sell at a high price.
Thank you, Sean. Vasanta, the vaccination is introduced. There will be an issue with regard to demand, as a lot of economies are struggling at the moment and people are reluctant to spend their money, as you mentioned. So what do you think the effect of that to our business?
Well, I think we have to accept the fact that there is going to be a slowdown in business. As long as, so far it has been very, very difficult to put a time frame to it, right? But we discussed certain timelines, and I believe we put on the corner, meaning with a possible vaccine and a solution, definitely under a year or so, right? I would say within the first half of next year. And from then onwards, I would see this building up. And we have had so many instances, Sri Lanka in particular, where we have bounced back from hopeless situations, right? So the main criteria here is, as I was explaining as well, is how do we manage to survive for a length of time. And if you can, as of now, I dread to say it, but at least till next year, you have to have a plan for survival. You have to have your work on your cash flows. You have to see, whether you have enough reserves and structure accordingly to be in business for a period of time.
Thank you, Vasanta. There's a question from the audience again. Has SLTDA started destination marketing campaign? Have they started already?
Destination marketing is done by SLTBP, not SLTDA. But having said that, there is no plan that is being shared with the industry as yet in terms of any marketing activity. Possibly it's rightly so as well. It is not a time we can ask anyone to come here without having airport open. It is only then that we can go out there and market the destination, inviting people to come to Sri Lanka. But having said that, we also feel that there are the marketable components, not essentially to say to come to Sri Lanka, but there are the marketable solutions such as keeping, it's all about a brand, and so Sri Lanka brand need to be top of the mind brand even at a time like this. So therefore, maybe where we have handled the COVID, not essentially what has happened in the last 4 days, but the death count is a classic example of how well we have managed it, and number of people that has been cured from, which is a high percentage as well. There is a positive message to be taken to the world and taken to certain markets about people who are health conscious about the COVID and how it's been related. So there are the marketable message. But we answer your question, we really have nothing that has been communicated to the industry with regard to marketing activity. But what we know is that global marketing campaign has got cabinet on after a while, and when that is going to be launched is yet to be established. But that's on a positive note that is known. Let me also take the trouble at this moment, while I was hearing everybody else's view, I did a quick calculation on the previous question he answered, and I tried to be corrected here as well. On the 2018 numbers, I did a quick calculation on what the summer 18 produced. Summer 18 produced something like 1.1 million, 1.2 million tourists. So it was a great summer. July, August itself went to about 200,000 figure in summer for each month. and my projection previously was 70 to 90% drop for 21. I stand to be corrected there. I would like to say, for the purpose of record, between 52 and 70% drop instead. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. I think the question and answers from the audience is over now. I haven't got any more questions, so I would like to hand over to Chantel. Just give me a second. Any other questions from audience? If you have questions, you can ask. Over to you, Chantel.
One opportunity that I see, at least in the short term, the informal sector, which has been frightening us for a period of time, they will be more reliant to travel with the formal sector because of the situation, because of the COVID fears and all that. There is a tendency for them to travel with somebody where they can have a backup in case of an issue, right? Rather than be traveling singularly on their own. But that will not last forever, but at least for a period of time. So that will be an opportunity for the DFCs.
Thank you. We've now drawn near to the end of our proceedings, and we would like to take this opportunity to appreciate the panelists here today who has made the day fruitful. And to do so, I call upon Mr. Mahen Karivasam to do the honors. Our first recipient is Mr. Vasanta Lilananda. Thank you, sir, for being here today. Next, Mr. Ruwan Samarasinha. Thank you, sir, for your presence. Thank you, Mr. Karivasan. Please may I now call upon Mr. Jude Conrad, Vice President Tassel. Please could you do the honors for Mr. Amit Sumanapal. And also for Mr. Eshan Vidasingha. Lastly, please may we have Mr. Asita Panabuke. Dr. Damon Fernando, thank you for being our moderator for today. Thank you. Mr. Panabuke, please would you address the gathering with your vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I believe the last few hours have been productive for all of us. I must take this opportunity to thank Mr. Amit Sumanapala, Mr. Eshan Vidasingha, Vasanta Lilananda, Mr. Ruwan Samarasinha, and Mr. Damon Fernando. We have learned much from our eminent panel of speakers. And I must thank them for taking their time to share their experience with all of us. Their insights will certainly help us all in our future endeavors. It has been valuable for us to have an interactive session, especially after the circumstances of the last few months. This is unfortunately our new reality, a reality that we will have to navigate for the foreseeable future. The challenges lie in the volatile nature of the new reality and the uncertainty that lies ahead. But as members of the tourism industry, I believe we are in a unique position to overcome this, because we are used to working and thriving in a challenging environment. we have managed to work amidst challenges in the past and will continue to do so in the future. To this end, we must all work together as an industry and help each other through trying times. There has never been a more important time than today for us to collaborate, to share and learn from each other. This is one of the reasons that the One Voice initiative came about, so that we can all benefit from the knowledge and learnings and efforts of those in the industry. I must thank Slaito, Tassel and Pata, who have come together today to speak in one voice and to also make resources such as these available to all of us. This event would not have been possible without the team from the Chamber who have worked tirelessly to make this happen. So once again, I thank all of you for your participation. We hope to have more sessions such as these in the coming months, so that we can emerge even stronger as an industry and a country. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation today. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.